Hi folks, welcome back to the channel. So today I've had an opportunity to kind of, go through the Deepal S07 interface. I'm going to give you a quick walkthrough of some of the features and capabilities on the UI that you can kind of make tweaks to. So without further ado, let's get started. So as you can see, this is the main screen, Android tablet-like, I would say. Easy to kind of swap wallpapers. I like how it's just kind of swapping wallpapers like that. It's very nice. So you can do a pull down. Pull down will bring down the app drawer. As you can see, those are the apps that are there. At a glance, looks like quite a few apps, but when I kind of double click into it, you realize that there's probably not as many apps as you think. Okay, so I'll bring that up. It also has a left swipe or right swipe. Okay, as you can see, these are all shortcuts. So from distraction warning turning off, adjustment of side mirrors, changing front wiper speed, those are obviously important because there is actually no ability to change it from the store. So everything's off the screen. So this comes in extremely helpful. So there is HUD controls, Bluetooth, high beam, low beam as well, because you can't actually change the beam setting. Of course, now it's set to auto, but if you kind of want to turn it off or just turn it to low beam manually, you have to change it from the UI. So unfortunately, this is going to be a very, very important side panel. And I like the fact that it's actually closest to the driver if you kind of pull out. And you can also change the screen tilt. For those who are not aware, with Deepal, by default, as you enter the car, the screen actually tilts towards the driver, which is very intuitive. I like that a lot. But obviously for this video's purpose, I've actually kept it in the center, so you guys get a very good view. You can also control the sunshade if you need it to be, and obviously screen brightness and whatnot. So that's all on the right hand side. Coming back to the UI again, the top bar has got quite a bit of information. The top corner there, obviously you have the time, Bluetooth connectivity, also the dash cam, and I'll come to that in a minute. And obviously showing you Android Auto is connected. And on the right hand side, it's actually where all the car controls are. As you can see, front headlamp, parking brakes, safety belt on and off. In park mode, if I switch it to drive, it'll show D there, and obviously speedometer. The reason why it's there, because we don't actually have an instrument cluster on the Deepal S07, so this becomes super critical. Right, so coming down further, this is where all the quick widgets are. Here you can see you can change to eco, comfort, or sport mode. You can also change up music. You have your native nav, and I'll move it slightly. This is the trip odometer and whatnot. So again, this is partly because the car doesn't have a cluster, so everything's here. This is not something that I really like, but it is what it is. You can actually change this trip meter from the steering wheel as well. As you can see, I'm just clicking steering wheel now. So yeah, it's a bit of a hassle. You kind of need to look here to get those information. Right at the bottom, you have your home, car settings, and this is the app drawer again, and obviously the air conditioning controls. Some of these buttons you can actually customize. For example, if I kind of click one of these and hold down, you can see how it's kind of bouncing around. You can kind of drag an app here to fill the gap. Alternatively, these are some of the settings that are predetermined that you can actually bring it down. I actually brought a central screen to turn off down here. So yeah, that's how you customize some of those stuff. Before I go to air conditioning, let's go through some of these. So for music, as you can see, local music, whatever that's on the car, you can obviously connect to Bluetooth music and Android Auto. It's a bit of an interesting one because music is separate from radio. So if I come back here, pull down the app drawer, you will see local radio as a separate entity. Okay, so yeah, took me a while to figure that out, but yeah, interesting. Okay, coming back home. So obviously you have the native nav. I actually quite like this nav. I mean, obviously I'm quite used to BYD, but this nav, it's actually not too bad. I quite like the nav. unfortunately I can't show you. It's got a bit of a 3D thing going on of the buildings as you drive. It's not as annoying as the one on BYD, but nonetheless it works. But yeah, I'll go back out. Okay, so what else here? Okay, got that all covered. So let's go to air conditioning. So air conditioning in this car, and you might know, there's actually no manual controls. So much like the Seal BYD, so you kind of just set the angle of the flow of air. I found it a little bit hard to get it right. Some of you may know I'm not a big fan of non-manual controls. This whole touchscreen thing, kind of get it very, the aiming is a bit of a hit and miss, but nonetheless, some people like it. It's a matter of preference. So obviously you can do all you need to do here from an air conditioning perspective. Cool. So let's look at the apps available. I kind of discussed this briefly at the start. We covered a little bit. So you see you have nav, you have music, we've covered that. Phone, pretty stock standard. I'll go, you can kind of punch in a couple of numbers if you want to. And dial, nothing really fancy, pretty standard. Of course, settings, that's where we go into car settings, and I'll get into that in a bit. So you have 360 view, which is essentially the cameras around the car. So you can kind of pick your location, rear, side mirrors, from the top, essentially, just half and half of the left and right. So pretty useful. What else? Dashcam. Oh, so this car actually does come with dashcam. So this is the view for the dashcam for the front, rear, and the sides. So very useful. I know a lot of BYD in Singapore, you kind of install it as an aftermarket piece, but here they kind of put it in as stock. So pretty good, pretty good. I'll come to scene in a while, but let's go to files. So files, yeah, no surprise there. USB storage or local files if you have any. Camera. This is a bit of a party piece. It's got, obviously now I'm looking straight into it. It's right above the rear wheel mirror. It gives the view a bit of a selfie view. It has gesture control, and I'll come to that as well. But yeah, it's got some use cases to monitor kids, and I'll come to that under the scenes. Monitor kids, monitor pets, a bit of party piece, like I said, snap a couple of selfies, etc., etc. So yeah, we'll come back to this one. Energy flow. This is nothing more than just animation, really. So it gives you obviously the state of charge and how much range that's left. As you drive, this little battery pack just shows where the energy is going. So when you accelerate, obviously it shows from battery to wheels, and then when you regen, the reverse happens. So it's a nice animation piece, but that's all it really is. Obviously we have a user manual, very stock standard there with new cars, or all digital. Amazon Music if you have an account, and obviously Android Auto and CarPlay. I've got Android Auto connected because I'm using Android. Obviously CarPlay and the local radio we've touched a bit. So the big thing that's glaringly missing from here, it's actually an app store of sorts. So understandably, Deepal doesn't really have an app store at the moment, and they're pretty new to the market. So this is really the apps that you have, unless somebody figures out how to sideload apps. If you notice, there is no ability to kind of watch video while you're waiting, no YouTube, no Netflix, nothing of that sort. So it's pretty limited from a capability and app software perspective. Vehicle settings is really the shortcuts that we saw earlier when we want to customize the bottom bar. So these are some of the shortcuts rather. And let's go and double click into, oh yeah, I forgot, scene mode. So scene mode is a bit of an interesting one. It's a preset configuration. So for example, camping mode, suitable for passengers staying in the car for extended period. If I go enable this, what's going to happen is that it turns off the lights, keep the air conditioning running, etc., etc. It has smoking mode. Interestingly enough, smoking mode essentially just lowers down the windows and gives you some fresh air, etc., etc. Nap mode, play soothing music, and then what happens, I tried this earlier, so it reclines your seat fully and provides you an alarm clock to wake up once you're done napping. So napping is a big thing in China. So yeah. And yeah, a few other stuff. Privacy mode, it hides all call information and mute the ringtone so you don't get no calls while you drive. Lighting show, this is a bit of a flashy one. When you enable it, much like Tesla, a bit of a party piece where the lights start blinking to a music tune, and you can have music playing out on the external speakers. So yeah, it's got a few more other options: car wash mode, human and pet detection. So this is for those who want to kind of monitor their pets in the car while they go get groceries, or go do some chores outside the car. In-car mode, similar to kind of capture everything that's happening inside the car. So if you have a kid or a child you left in the car for maybe 5 minutes to go grab something, you can kind of set these modes on. So it's very fancy and interesting, and this actually use the camera I spoke about earlier, right? The internal selfie camera, and do that monitoring. I actually did ask the Deepal SA if the app has a capability to remotely view this. Unfortunately, today that capability doesn't exist. So the use case is a little bit limited, if you ask me. So let's get to car settings. More to cover here. Lights. Straightforward. So again, because there's no stalks, you can turn off lights here and you turn lights on. Fog light is here, smart main beam, what the height of the deep beam height, etc. Of course, there's ambient lighting. You can do customization. You can customize it by drive mode, vehicle speed, or music rhythm. So there's a lot of level configurability in Deepal, and as we go along, you will see a little bit more. So more ambient light items, how bright you want it to be, what color, obviously, welcome lights, dome lights. Just so you know, the dome lights, it's only right at the front of the vehicle. There is no dome lights at the back, so the back is a little bit darker. So if that's an issue for you, you might want to kind of think about that. Obviously, backlight, headlight off delay. This when you kind of shut down the car. Controls. Again, wiper speed. It's all controlled right by the UI. Unfortunately, thankfully, like I said, there's a lot of shortcuts coming out from the right here. So you can change intermittent, slow, medium, fast, whatever. This car also have rear view wipers. Rear view wipers, you can actually configure and set it there. Obviously, sunshade open and close. Your trunk open and close. Doors handles unfold automatically. So that is more from an angle where if let's say the door handles, when you near the car, by default, it's all flush, much like Tesla. But if you want it to kind of just pop out as you close, when you get near to the car and the car is unlocked, just kind of eases those who are not so familiar with opening the car doors, that little press mechanism. So it's a nice capability. Obviously, child lock, rear seat child lock. So this one is actually to lock the, if you can see the graphic there, is to lock the controls, the AC controls on the back. So there's a touchscreen AC control for the rear passenger. So it's kind of badly labeled, I reckon. But if you don't actually want your kids kind of messing with that, temperature control and climate controls at the rear, you can actually disable that. I'll leave this as unchecked. Okay. Unlock on parking, close windows on lock, smart key locking, smart key unlocking. Yeah, the usual stuff. Nothing really fancy here. Just the stock standard stuff you see everywhere. Okay, so cabin, side mirror, you can fold, auto fold. You can have it tilt down on reverse. You can obviously save and adjust your seat settings if you want to. Only for the driver and passenger. Unfortunately, it's only one profile, it seems like. One for the driver and one for the passenger, which was quite interesting. I rather it would have had, two drivers. Passengers don't really need it, but hey. Okay, what else? So we have screen, so the rotation. We kind of briefly talked about this, whether it's centered or whether it's to the driver or to the passenger. And shortcut keys. So this is very interesting. There is actually two customizable keys on the steering wheel, which I kind of like. And that's key 1 and key 2. Essentially, you get 4 shortcut keys because there's key 1 short press, key 1 long press, and likewise key 2 short and long press. And these are some of the shortcut keys that you can get to. I think they understood the fact that there isn't any stock. This customizable key kind of make do and kind of bridge the gap, right? So there's quite a bit of stuff that can happen here, from HUD to windscreen wipers, turning on and off AC, mirror adjustments. Yeah, there's quite a bit of stuff here. I thought this was very, very nifty. Essentially, you get 4 additional buttons that you can customize accordingly, just to make up for those who still like that whole button concept and you don't want to do a touchscreen all the time. So yeah. Okay, going to charging. This is just a little bit of metrics of charging consumption. How do you want to display it? It has also charging settings. You can set how much you want to charge the car to at any one point in time. Some prefer to charge it 80%. Yeah, you can kind of set it here. This is pretty nice. I wish I had that on the BYD. Unfortunately, they don't. Obviously, scheduled charging, locking the connectors when you're charged, etc., etc. Augmented Reality HUD. Personally, I really like this HUD. It's nice and clear, pretty large, I would say. Very, very nice. So you can set the brightness, height, obviously standard or snow display. Standard display just simply means the text are in white, and if it's snow, the text becomes blue. It's got all the stuff that you need. As you can imagine, this HUD becomes a very important component for the Deepal car. Part because the fact that there's no instrument cluster, so a lot of the driving instruments and the details that you need is actually on the HUD. Because these details up here, personally, I don't really like it because it's too small and too obscure, too tiny, and you kind of always take your eye off the road to kind of see things right at the top here. So fortunately, some of those are actually being duplicated on the HUD, so which is really, really great. Okay, drive mode. So this is where on a typical car you have eco, comfort, and sport, which is very typical. And depending on what you choose, the profile of the car changes. But what's special about the Deepal is the fact that it has got customize. In customize, you can actually create your own profile. So you can set acceleration to be standard, or maybe steering to be sport, and then you couple that with energy or regen to be standard strong. Or here's my favorite, the ability to customize regen. You can actually set regen to 100%, that you feel, the kind of pull and regen when you take your foot off the gas. Or you can have close to 0 regen. I understand 0, it doesn't mean completely 0 regen, but you almost don't really feel it at all. Apparently, it feels a little bit like an ICE car where it just kind of cruises along. So this is very, very unique. I thought this was very special because, there's a whole camp around, or you know what, single pedal driving and non-single pedal. But I've also been told, even if you set it to 100%, this is not single pedal driving. So it's nothing of that sort. So it doesn't bring the car to a complete stop. But this is one of the most interesting capabilities I've seen in terms of customized driver profile. So obviously brake boost as well, and some other miscellaneous configuration. So if you like to kind of tinker around, this is probably one of those key things that Deepal has that I think no other EVs have. I'll keep it as comfort for now. Cruise control. So ICC, it's all here, and all the settings for warnings like lane change warning, etc., they're all here. The unfortunate thing though, however, if you make changes here, it actually doesn't persist. When you start the car again, it comes back on, which is interesting. I know it's because of NCAP, but I have a BYD C-Line 7 in Singapore and it stays off. So I'm not sure what the agreement is there and what NCAP states, but nonetheless, it's all here. Very, very standard stuff. Lane change, lane departure. Some people claim that it's a little bit sensitive and annoying, some reviewers, but frankly, I didn't think too much of it. It wasn't as annoying as I thought it would be. Occasionally there's beeps and bops, but I I hear it, but I don't always know what the issues are because of the lack of the instrument cluster. Sometimes you miss stuff. You hear the sound, but you don't actually know what's wrong. Okay, but yeah, if you want to kind of switch those off, you could, but it's going to be a pain because every time you start the car, it goes back to default. Right? Display. Pretty straightforward. Screen brightness, setting time zone, time format, language, mileage units. Nothing really out of the ordinary here. Okay, sounds. You can change sound effects. Obviously, you can kind of play around with what kind of sound profile. It's more the equalizer kind of play. You can obviously low, medium, high from a notification standpoint. Different value for multimedia call, navigation, voice interaction. Um, you can also set the low speed pedestrian alarm. There's a few sounds here. So yeah, your flavor. And the speaker, just so you know, the driver side has got driver headrest speakers. So you can actually have navigation come out through the headrest only, so it doesn't kind of go through the entire car, which is actually pretty nice. I've only actually seen it on the Xpeng G6, and I really like that feature. I wish it was stock standard for most cars, but yeah, it's a nice touch. So yeah, balance adjustments, touch tone, yeah, nothing out of the ordinary there. Going down, voice. This is more the AI voice assistant. So, hi Deepal,
Hello.
open the sunshade.
Okay, I'll turn
Okay.
it on.
So this is just one of the few of the features. If I thought, initially I thought the BYD assistant was limited in its AI capabilities. I am beginning to think that the Deepal AI assistance is even more limited today. So don't rely too much on this. At least not for now. I'm quite certain at some point they will improve on this, and there's a lot more features to come. So cabin camera, this is that that selfie camera I talked about. So it's got a few fancy party tricks. So if you do the peace sign, you'll take a photo. You put a fist, you pause song, hang up the phone, answer the phone, mute. So it's got a couple of hand gestures that it takes. If you ask me, it's really novelty, but hey, nonetheless, it's there. Connectivity is nothing more than Bluetooth, Wi-Fi, hotspot. Nothing there. Safety and service. This is more just roadside assistance and SOS calls to Deepal if there's anything that happens on the road. My vehicle. So this is really just where you update your vehicle software. So if I click that, check and download, it should come out as nothing. Okay. So it's currently at OS 2.0. Right. 128 gig of storage, very generous on the memory, and a Qualcomm chip, pretty decent. So there's definitely a lot of upside to this particular Android system. So hopefully there's more features to come. System version, if you keep tapping on this many times, you get the software version as well, as per a bit of an Android hack, really. Right. And lastly, privacy mode just says, hey, do you want to kind of send the data from the car to Deepal? Not too sure, if there's maybe certain instances that you want it to be private, but yeah. And permissions, location, camera permissions, yeah, the usual stuff. And that's pretty much all the capabilities. So with that, hopefully you found this a little useful, and stay tuned for the next one. Thanks again, folks.